do you identify with the term Pasifika?
I find I find so many different terms like Pasifika, Melanesian, Micronesian, like all so confusing because there's so many like different types of political terms for us. And so for me, as I've gotten older, I'm like, I'm an Itauke woman. I'm Fijian. That's all like I need to know about me. And like, you figure it out. You know what I mean? Like, for me, it's like I'm Fijian. Pasifika, yes, all the things, because we are like one big happy family.
Mm-hmm.
The short answer is yes, but I guess the longer answer is the way, I guess, again, like claiming this language, like, is kind of, well, it's kind of dependent on the time and place as well. Like, it might mean something to me today and mean something really different to me tomorrow, depending on who I'm with, depending on, the politics around using these words as well. So, and Pasifika it's the same as Takatapu, it's the same as queer, it's the same as lots of other problematic words that I probably shouldn't say right now, but you know, like I use all of them, and for me it is also part of, like you're saying, Latai, that fluidity and that really, I guess for me it's important not to get too embedded and like really just hard on the language, like hold on to language, because I am also in a process of learning, and words that mean something today might not mean the same thing tomorrow, and that's fine.
We had a little conversation by email around the title of this panel, and I think for me, when I raised it, it was, you know, it wasn't to be resistant or anything. I think it is a really important conversation that we have because, as I said, Oceania is a huge region. We come from many Pacific Island nations and states from the region that have old and new relationships to First Nations, mostly East Coast Australia. And the word Pacific is actually the Portuguese or French word. It was an explorer who named the ocean the Pacific Ocean, and which comes from the word to pacify. And so I don't know many people from the region who identify with that word of being passive, and so I think that's where the first argument is. Then on top of that, when you use that word, like the Samoan version, Pasifika, spelled Pasefika, and Tongan Pasifiki, Māori will have another spelling. It's still a foreign word, so it really makes no difference. It's just the name of the region. However, we also have other geopolitical and economic labels that are associated with the word Pacific. And I think just being mindful, I think often that we don't just fall into the trap of accepting these terms. I think I think Aotearoa started using Pasifika in the 90s. It is now Pasifika people. You know, some people refer to themselves as Moana Oceania. Some people refer to themselves as One Soul Wara, you know, or Polynesian, Micronesian, Melanesian, all problematic terms that are more about geopolitics and economic boundaries. So most of us don't want to identify as that. Some people don't even want to identify as islander because it's considered like you're not an islander, you're an island person. So I think just raising it is more the point, that it's complex and our identities are really rich and deep and go back a long time, and that these things are constantly changing and we can make them up if we want. You know, I'm starting to just identify mostly as Tongan because at least I know I can speak to those values and I practice those cultural values, but I also identify as being a queer Australian person, you know. So, I think that's the context for that.
I mean, just I guess what everyone else has said, really, and that it depends on also, I guess, the situation that I'm in. Like when I'm in Samoa, I'm not like, "Hi, Nana, I'm proud we're all Pasifika people." But then, like, my dad has always. Also, my dad has spent a lot of his life in Australia and Aotearoa, and so he uses that term, and so I guess like part of it is like a connection to him, but similarly to everyone else, I think specificity is really important, and so using like really specific things about myself, and also I guess for a point of acknowledging privilege and favorability, and that like I'm a Samoan person, I'm Afakasi, like, and so being specific about what the makeup of me is also, I suppose, puts language around the way that people like me and again, like speaking specifically to around being Samoan, around the favorability, that using language like Pasifika can often make assumptions about like straight away who that is, and a lot of cultures and countries perhaps aren't sort of seen within that umbrella term.